Episode number 4. We're getting into the meat of the defense, the linebackers and defensive backs. Again with Coach Ralph Friedgen. How you doing, Coach?
Doing great, Larry. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to have you. Pleasure to be doing this whole series that we're doing. Can't believe we're on number 4 out of 5 now. Almost there. Get to see some really great players in Maryland history. And we might as well jump right into it. Linebackers and defensive backs. First team linebackers, E.J. Henderson, DeQuell Jackson, Eric Wilson, and they're in alphabetical order, but E.J. should probably be listed first anyway. Look at this list. I mean, it's up there with Randy White for me, Coach. 1999 to 2002, second all-time in tackles, tied for 8th in sacks, first team All-American twice. He won the Bednarik Award. He won the Buckus Award. ACC first team twice. He's the ACC Player of the Year, ACC Defensive Player of the Year, College Hall of Fame, 2002 Peach Bowl MVP, and number 40 in the draft. One of the best ever in Maryland history. Correct, Coach?
And a great leader for us, too. He just was a sensational player, and I really was very privileged to have the opportunity to coach and be with him because he was just a great player. And actually, the more video I watch of him now, I probably even appreciate him more than I did when he was playing for us because, I'll tell you a funny story, okay?
Okay.
I first got to Maryland, and we had spring practice, and first day in pads, we had a goal line scrimmage, and I was trying to emphasize winning was going to be important, so I always made a little competition. The winners of the goal line scrimmage, they would go in, and the losers would run gassers. And the offense won the first day, and so I took the defense and let the other coaches go in. It was a beautiful spring day, and we started running gassers. And gassers are you line up on the sidelines and you run across the field, up, back, up, back. That's one gasser. And I think we're going to run 3 gassers. Well, we start running these gassers, and about 5 guys are not running. They're just kind of jogging. And I meant this to be a full-out sprint, So I said, look, guys, I just love to be out here at practice, and it's a Saturday afternoon. I mean, I got no place to go this afternoon. So if we don't start running, we're going to keep running these till we start running full speed. So they start running again. Same thing. About 5 guys are just jogging. I said, you think I'm kidding? No, we're going to stay out here till you start running. Well, at that, EJ went up, and the 5 guys that weren't running, I don't know what he said to them, but he whispered in their ear, and they were running after that. So I said, well, I think we found my leader. And
Petty captain, yeah.
And he was a very soft-spoken, but he was very, very well respected and just a very physical guy who came to play every single week. I mean, I don't think I was watching the Peach Bowl because I never got to watch it before. I took our staff after the Peach Bowl to the Dominican Republic, and it's about 4 or 5 years ago. I was at the lake house, and it came up on YouTube, and I started watching the game, and EJ was just unbelievable. We had 2 defensive tackles. Randy Starks got hurt the second play of the game, and we had we had a walk-on. Duffy was our kid playing, and I just told him to grab those guards and don't let him on EJ. Well, he played pretty well. Justin Duffy did, and then EJ just was all over the field. I think he won the MVP that game. And I said, I just got to call EJ up. And I finally got a hold of him. He's out in Minnesota, and he said, Coach, I think that was my best game. I said, it was unbelievable. You played just a great football game. And he's this is not an easy decision to make here on these linebackers because we've had some really great linebackers in Maryland and really some great defenses too. So the fact that EJ sits on top, that says what a great player he is.
Yeah, and he deserves it. He was the MVP of that Peach Bowl, and you watched it 4 or 5 years ago. The rest of us watched it in action, and absolutely loved EJ. He was I never saw Randy White. I wasn't old enough for that, but I did see EJ, and in my opinion, at least in person that I've seen, is the best player I've seen in Maryland history.
Yeah, temperament-wise, they're very similar.
Yeah. Number 2 on the list, the guy who took over for EJ, and what a thankless job that is when you take over for maybe the best player in Maryland history, but he did a really good job. DeQuell Jackson, 2002 to 2005. He was a 2-time first-team ACC player and a second-team ACC player. So he made All-ACC 3 times. He was a second-team All-American. He was ACC Defensive Player of the Year 1 year. He's third all-time in tackles in Maryland history, and he was 34th in the draft.
He was a really good player too. We played him as the will linebacker his first year as a freshman, and Leon Joe was the starter. But we knew once EJ left, he was going to Mike linebacker, and DeQuell he played really, really good. And, I was just fortunate to have some really good players, and I think Mike Loxley recruited DeQuell, and I don't know who recruited EJ, because EJ's from where Hal Ripton's from, Maryland. Aberdeen, Maryland, yeah. But really, DeQuell Jackson really played well for us, and did a nice job in the NFL also.
DeQuell, great player. Third player on the first team, Eric Wilson from 1981 to 84. He was a 2-time first-team All-ACC player. He was a second-team All-American, and he is first all-time in tackles. So we got 1, 2, and 3 on this first team here, and it's not just the tackles, it's all the other awards too. He wasn't drafted until 171 for some reason, but clearly a great player as well.
Very physical linebacker, could run, who would really hit you, but he also was a great leader for us, and he really a great person. And it still comes back to Maryland, and he was very, very well respected on the team, very much deserving of first team.
And he was part of those great ACC teams that won the back-to-back ACC championships with you and Coach Bobby Ross. All right, let's go to the second team here. The second team we've got, and we made a decision here. You see, we're doing a 4-3 here, but we couldn't really figure out what to do with Sean Merriman. Is he a lineman? Is he a linebacker? We decided it's our list. We can do what we want. We put 4 linebackers on our second team. He's one of them. We got Chuck Falsett, Sean Merriman, Kevin Walker, and Alex Wujak. And since I brought him up, I'll just start with him. He was, we talked about in the previous episode about Vernon Davis being a physical specimen. Sean Merriman, too. This guy could just destroy people. 2002 to 2004, he played. He was first team All-ACC, was the number 12 pick in the NFL draft, and he's third all time in sacks. Great player, Coach.
Yeah, Sean played the Leo linebacker for us, which in Gary Blackney's scheme was a hybrid outside linebacker, defensive end. And Sean always wanted to play Mike. He used to come in my office and say, Coach, they're running away from me. I said, that's a good thing. I said, you can you can catch them. But I said, Sean, you're going to be so valuable in the NFL draft, because you can be a 3-4 linebacker or a 4-3 linebacker. And I said, you can drop and you can coverage and you can rush the passer. I said, so you really, and I don't think he believed me until he got a high draft pick. And then he said, you were telling me the truth. I said, yeah. I said, you were playing a very tough position and doing a heck of a job at it. So the fact that I think he could have played inside also, that's why I said, let's not put him as a defensive end. Let's list him with the linebackers. And, just as he was able to make a 3-4 linebacker or a 4-3, now we're going to play a 3-4 with him right now.
Right. Whatever it takes to get him on the field, right, Coach? When you got somebody
exactly
like that.
Right. But he was a very, very good football player for us. And, he also, he's really done a lot for the community. He has this coat
the coat drive, yeah.
Coat drive that he does every year. When he first approached me about that, I thought he needed a coat for the winter. And then he's told me he did this in high school, and it's turned into a pretty big thing. Is he still doing it in Maryland?
As far as I know, we had him on the show. I think it was 3 years ago. When Maryland opened the season against West Virginia, we did a live show on campus at the tailgate. He came up and he was talking about it then. So at least as of then, I'm not really sure. But well, you know what? I'll research that. I'll find out and I'll put it in the description for this episode.
Because I know when we were there, I think he was getting a couple of thousand coats to give,
Yeah,
to people for the winter, which was a very honorable thing to do. And
yeah,
it took a lot of time and effort on his part. And,
yeah,
he had a tattoo on his arm, lights out. That's what he became famous for,
yeah,
putting people lights out.
yep.
So yeah, he's a colorful guy, and a really good football player.
Great football player. Chuck Fawcett, another one of the linebackers from those ACC championship teams in the 80s. He played 83 to 86. He was a two-time first team All ACC, tied for third in tackles, 279th in the NFL draft, coach.
Chuck's an interesting guy now. Chuck went and played pro baseball first, and I don't know if he couldn't hit the curve or what, but he came as an older guy back to Maryland as a freshman, and I think he had two Corvettes he drove in. But we're playing in the Sun Bowl, and they had we had a thing to do. We had a thing with Tennessee, and they were going to have a talent show. And Chuck got up and did an imitation of Chuck Berry. You know how he does that walk.
Uh-huh.
And he did it to Johnny B. Good. Well, we didn't know this, but they had Johnny Jones was their running back, and Tennessee was going nuts because they were playing his theme song, and Chuck was doing Chuck Berry. But Chuck could play linebacker now. He was a very wild guy, but he was a very good football player, and we were very fortunate he decided to come play football and not play pro baseball.
Yeah. Kevin Walker, 84 to 87. Man, you had some linebackers back then, coach. First team All ACC. He was 84 to 87. First team All ACC, was 11th all time in tackles. He was 57th in the NFL draft.
Very good athlete, could really run. Played really well for us. His big claim to fame is I'm having a senior moment again. He tackled the big running back, Bo Jackson.
Okay.
And hurt. He got dislocated hip, I believe. And
is that the one in the NFL that put him out?
That's the one in the NFL.
Oh, okay.
And Kevin Walker was the guy that tackled him. I remember
seeing.
But he, he was really a good football player.
And last on our second team is Alex Wujak, 2008. This one was a surprise to me. 2008, 2010. I remember him being a good player. I didn't remember that he was two-time All ACC first team and ACC second team, 3 times on the All ACC team, and he's 8th all time in tackles in Maryland history.
Alex loved to play football. He had a bad knee, and I was trying to help him, and so I would take him out of practice at times just to rest his knee up, and he would get mad at me for not being able to practice. I never had a lot of guys that come mad at me for not letting them practice, but Alex came to play every day, and I got a call when I was coaching at Rutgers from the New Jersey State Police, and they were asking me about could I give a recommendation to Alex Wojak as a New Jersey State trooper. And I said, well, you're going to have to cut his hair. He said, that won't be a problem because Alex liked to have those long locks. But I said, you wouldn't find a better state trooper than this guy. And I think he's still a state trooper for New Jersey. So good football player, tough kid, but loved to play football.
Good state trooper, good football player. Now we will go on to our third team linebackers. We'll start with Brad Carr, Eric Barton, and Harry Walters. We'll start with Brad Carr. He played under Coach Claiborne from 74 to 75. He was an All-ACC first-team player. He's 8th all-time in tackles. He was the number 327 pick in the NFL draft.
I don't know a lot about Brad because he came to Maryland after I left, but he but I knew about him talking to the coaches there, what a really good player he was. And I remember watching him. I went to a couple of their bowl games, and he played really well. So he was a really good football player also, very physical kid.
And another player, as you've mentioned before, the 90s might be your dark ages for Maryland, but Eric Barton, who played from 95 to 98, one of the best defenders in all of the 90s for the Terps. He was all ACC first team players, fifth all time in tackles. He was taken 146 in the NFL draft.
And he played for the Jets, I believe, and did a pretty good job. And yeah, anytime you play in the NFL as a linebacker, you're a pretty good player.
Pretty good player. Harry Walters is our last linebacker on the third team. He played from 73 to 74. He maybe overlapped with you a little bit. He was an ACC first team player, number 303 pick.
I believe, if I remember this correctly, Harry Walters transferred from, I think, William and Mary.
Okay.
And I think he came to us. I believe Coach Ross helped him get to Maryland, if I'm right on this. But I remember he was very, very athletic, could really run, and tackle to tackle, sideline to sideline. He was that type of player that could make plays.
And a first team All SEC player. Now let's go to our underrated linebacker. That is Leon Joe. He played from 2000 to 2003. What a group of linebackers you had with EJ, with Sean Merriman, with DeQuell Jackson, with Leon Joe, and someone we're going to get on the next page, Aaron Henderson. That is a group of linebackers in the early 2000s, Coach. He's underrated because he didn't get the accolades those other guys did, but he was a great player. He was a 112th pick in the NFL draft, which is somewhere in the fourth round, but a great player for the Terps. And I'll tell a story before you get there. The Orange Bowl game, I just remember in the stadium, the announcer kept calling him Joe Leon. And it became a big joke on the message board. Everybody call him Joe Leon because he does have two first names, right? But he kept calling him Joe Leon, and we just turned it into a big joke about how much we love Joe Leon, because the announcer kept messing it up. But a great player, an underrated player when he's compared to all these other superstars at the same time.
Well, Leon, not only was he very strong, I know he benched like 450, but he could run 4.5 or better. And with he and EJ and Gary Blackney used to run a lot of these cross dogs inside, they got more sacks, they just complemented each other so well. And to me, Leon should have gotten a lot more recognition. And I'm surprised he didn't play longer in the NFL because I really felt he was one of the better linebackers that I had been associated with. And kind of an introverted guy like EJ. He didn't talk a whole lot, at least to me, but he let his playing do his talking for him, and really, really good football player.
We'll now go to the honorable mention linebackers. We have 8 of them here. Kevin Benson, who played from 72 to 75, Coach.
Yeah, he came in, right when I was leaving, but he was the Mike linebacker, big, strong, physical guy, really put together well, played really well, tackle would really hit you.
And he did make an all-conference first team, by the way. So that's why he's here. Jermaine Carter Jr., 2014 to 2017. He didn't make a first team, but he was honorable mention 3 times. And I thought he was this close 3 times. I thought it was worth bringing him up here as an honorable mention, one of the great linebackers of the teams.
I had a chance to talk to him on the phone. He called me just before the draft, and and he I think he got drafted by Carolina and played very well for him. I think he's still playing, but I don't know where right now. But I watched him. He played very well for Maryland. Very, very athletic linebacker, and could cover and coverage. And he did a great job for Maryland. After I left.
Another one of those early 2000 linebackers.
Oh,
no wonder.
You got Jerome Cox in the wrong spot here. You got him as a linebacker. He's a secondary guy.
I apologize for that. Well, we'll talk about him when we get to the secondary then.
All right.
Let's forget it for right now. We'll go to Aaron Henderson, one of those 2000 linebackers. He played 2006, 2007. Yes, he was EJ's younger brother, but also he was a great player for the Terps. He was a first team all conference player and a second team all conference player.
Aaron was a quarterback in high school, and we ended up moving him to linebacker because he was such a good athlete and played very well for us. He came out as a junior and didn't get drafted, and then ended up making the team. Ended up playing in Minnesota with EJ, which was really neat. The two brothers were playing together, and did a great job for us. And I'm just fortunate enough to be able to coach those guys.
Moise Foku, 2006 to 2008. Again, during your run, this list of linebackers is pretty incredible.
Well, Moses transferred in from one of the junior colleges in Maryland. So he paid his own way to come to Maryland. And I used to watch all the film, the practice film. And I was watching him against, our defense, our offense, because he was on the scout team. And he was all over the place. And I called him in. I told him, I said, look, you do that in spring practice, you'll be on scholarship for next year. And he did. And he ended up playing in the NFL also. So, I think I had 6 or 7 walk-ons end up playing in the NFL. And Moses was
pretty great. It's always great when you see a walk-on. They show the videos sometimes when they make the announcement, and they say, hey, you've got your scholarship, and the whole team goes crazy. It's such a cool thing.
The funny thing is, at Georgia Tech, we used to get 10 walk-ons that we could help get in school. When I came to Maryland, they weren't having any guys that they could get in as walk-ons. So I said, I can't take this job unless I get at least 5. If you get 5 good kids a year that stay with you, they'll end up getting a scholarship if they're good. But that gives you 20 more bodies at the end of 4 years.
Right.
So I look really long and hard for guys that maybe you saw a lot of potential in them. And I just wanted to find out how motivated they were, how much did they want to be a college football player. And I took my chances on those guys, and a lot of times it paid off.
Eric Ogbogu, 1994-1997 coach, a great linebacker from the 90s.
You're going to have to talk about him. I don't know him at all.
Okay.
I was in the NFL then.
I know. It's the dark ages, right? But he was a second-team all-conference player, and he's second in Maryland history for sacks as a linebacker, only behind Sean Merriman. So, great linebacker, obviously, right? And he was drafted 163rd. So, Guy Roberts, 1969 to 1971. So he was there during your heyday.
Yeah, I played with Guy. Guy was we used to call him Link, call him Missing Link. I think he jumped out of the 3rd floor of Ellicott and lived. So he was a very unusual guy.
The Missing
Link. Really good football player.
Yeah, and that's reminiscent of The Wire and a character named Omar who did that too. So I don't know if you watched that, Coach.
I watched it. Yes, I did.
Yes, Omar. So yeah. Trey Watson is our last guy on the honorable mention list. He only played 1 year for the Terps. He was a transfer as well, but he was a conference team, first team all conference player in that 1 year. So I included him here. I don't know if you know much about him, Coach.
No, I don't.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go on to our defensive backs. Our first team for the defensive backs: Al Covington, Keita Covington, Dominique Foxworth, and Bob Smith. We'll start with let's do them together. The brothers Al Covington and Keita Covington, both of them were 2-time All ACC first team players. Keita Covington is tied for 5th all time in interceptions as well in the history. Al was 82 to 86, Keita 84 to 86. Coach, they were there during the Bobby Ross days with you.
Keita was as a cornerback, and Al was the safety. And Keita was shorter, but very physical and very fast. And Al was a safety, but he's probably about 6 foot, 6'1". But both of them were very, very aggressive football players, and really came up big. And then if you put Farrell Edmonds, they all played on the same high school team in Virginia. So we got 3 guys that are on our list that all came from that same high school, which is kind of interesting.
At the same time, too.
At the same time.
Yeah. There may be some examples of that of like some of the Maryland powerhouses, but for a school in Virginia, that's pretty unique.
You had to get him out of Virginia. It's really tough,
Yeah. Yeah. So, the third guy on our first team for defensive backs, Dominique Foxworth, 2001 to 2004. He was a first team All ACC and a two-time second team All ACC player. So three total All ACC uh, awards. He's tied for seventh all time in interceptions. He was a number 97 pick in the NFL draft.
Dominique, when I got the job at Maryland, he had committed to Coach Vanderlyn and then kind of decommitted. And we had to go in and re-recruit him. And he comes from a wonderful family. Just mom and dad are just, they're, I believe they're life motivators. They give talks and whatnot. And Dominique is such a class act. We were trying to redshirt him. We knew he was going to be good, but then Tony Akanawan got hurt and couldn't play, and we had to make a decision. We started playing him against Clemson, and Clemson. If we beat Clemson in 2001, we at least assure ourselves of a tie for the conference championship. And Clemson had a really good wide receiver. I can forget his name right now, but they must have tried to beat Dominique 6-7 times in that game, and he covered them like a glove. And from the get-go, he was really a good player for us, and just came out as a junior, after his junior year, came out as senior year, and was playing for the Denver Broncos. And if we had redshirted him, he might have been playing for us instead of the Denver Broncos, but he played really well for us from being a freshman all the way through his junior year, and he's doing very well educated kid, very, very intelligent, and just really great home. Just loved coaching him. He was a great kid.
And the fourth guy, I got to be honest with you, Coach, I didn't really know this guy, but maybe he's the best defensive back in Maryland history. Certainly the most decorated. He was a three-time All ACC first team player, and he's number one all time in interceptions in Maryland history. However, he's only the 416th pick in the NFL draft. They don't even go that long anymore. But Bob Smith, 1972 to 74.
Bob was a big kid. He's like 6'1" or so. Kind of was a ball hawk. I don't remember him that he had really great speed. He had good speed, but he had great anticipation and Tony Jackson was very similar to that from the way he would get interceptions too. He just had a good job of breaking on the ball and having a sense that being at the right spot at the right time. But Bob was a good athlete, and is also, I believe, is a good either punt returner or kickoff returner. I know he's a good returner, but a very good player for Coach Claiborne.
He is, and he will be mentioned again in the next episode when we start talking about special teams. All right, let's go to the second team. We have Lloyd Burris, Lewis Sanders, Ken Schroy, and Madu Williams. We'll start with Lloyd Burris, who played 76 to 80. So I think he missed you is under Coach Claiborne, tied
Right.
for second all-time in interceptions, number 78 pick in the NFL draft.
Yeah, he was really a good player. I know he was a good pro. I believe he went with Kansas City. I played quite a while in the NFL. Big kid, that could run pretty well, and did a very good job for Coach Claiborne.
Lewis Sanders played 96 to 99. He's second, tied for second. There are three players who have 10 interceptions. He's one of them, Lewis Sanders, 96 to 99, and a number 95 pick in the NFL draft. I guess not quite into your coaching days there, late 90s.
No, I don't know a lot about Lewis at all.
Okay. Ken Schroy, one of the other guys with 10 interceptions, tied for second all time. He was a number 248 pick in the NFL draft. He played 72 to 74. So you probably had him as a graduate assistant?
I did. I coached the defense at that time for the freshman team. At that time, we had freshman teams, and Kenny Schroy was on there, and so was Lewis Carter and Randy White, and they were probably the reason I decided to get into coaching. He was really, really a good player. Played with the Jets, did a great job in the pros too. Excellent football player.
And the final guy on the second team for defensive backs, Madu Williams, who played in the early 2000s, 2002 to 2003. He was a second team All ACC player. He's 10th all time in interceptions in Maryland history, and the number 56 pick in the NFL draft, a second rounder.
Madu originally went to Towson State. And Gordy, Gordy was the coach there. I forget his last name right now, but he called me and said, Ralph, this kid wants to go to Maryland. He said they didn't offer him, but he said he's really a Division I football player, and he's going to leave here and go somewhere. Do you have a scholarship for him? And I said, I don't, but if he come through for a spring practice, I'll put him on scholarship the next year. So he actually paid to come as a walk-on, and went through spring practice, and he had an offer by the time about the fifth practice. And you're on scholarship next year. So
he's another one of you guys.
He was good enough to play corner for us. In fact, if we had a guy we had to shut down, a lot of times we'll move him to corner. If we got somebody hurt, we'd move him to corner. But he was a really good safety, and he was a very physical guy. And the 2002 team, 2003 team, I think eight guys on that defense, maybe 9, made the NFL. That's pretty good.
Really good.
We had a really good defense that year,
well,
and offense too. But the defense was excellent, and Madu came in and really solidified that. And so it was, a lot of things just kind of went right for us. And, I was very fortunate. Good Lord blessed us with really good players and good coaches.
Yeah. Well, back to back double-digit victory seasons are evidence of that, right? How good that defense was, 9 of them in the NFL. Okay. Third team defensive backs, Tony Jackson, Tony Akonlawan, Darnell Savage, and Kenneth Tate. Start with Tony Jackson. So he was mostly under Van der Linden, but probably had 1 year with you, Coach, in 2001. Tied for 5th all-time in interceptions at Maryland. He was an All-ACC first-team player.
I think he was a baseball player also. He was an excellent athlete, and he was the guy I was talking about with Bob Smith, is that, he had a great eye for the ball, great feel, and really did a great job for us as a leader also for our defense in 2001.
Antonio Conlawan, very similar here, 98 to 2001. He was also an All-ACC first-team player.
And only played in 6 games in 2001. He had 6 interceptions and played in 6 games and got hurt and couldn't play the rest of the year. And then Schottenheimer called me when he was coaching with the Chargers, and they were going to sign him as a free agent. And he said to me, can he play? And I said, yeah, he can play. I said, he just got to stay well. And he went there and actually made the team, and then came home and was working out and hurt himself, and then, couldn't play anymore. But Tony was playing really good football for me for the first 6 weeks of the season.
Darnell Savage, 2015 to 2018. He's 5th all-time in passes defended, 7th all-time in interceptions, and he was the number 22 pick in the NFL draft. Good, obviously, with ranking high in multiple stat categories there.
I played against him, when I was at Rutgers, and he's a really good player, and he's playing well, I think, for Green Bay right now, and doing very, very well as a safety for them.
Yep. Kenneth Tate, 2008 to 2012. He was an All-ACC first-team player, but that might not have been until after you left.
Yeah, he was very highly recruited. I really thought he had a great family. I used to enjoy his younger brother. I wonder how he used to get in my golf cart with me. But Kenny played really well for us, and he could play. He was kind of in between. He could play safety, or he could play linebacker. He could play up in the box. He could play deep. 6'3" kid who could really run and a very good athlete, and really happy he came to Maryland.
All right, let's look at our underrated defensive back, and we've got a relatively recent player, Deonte Banks, tied for 6th in passes defended. Doesn't rank that high in some of the other categories, only with 2 interceptions. He's mid-level in terms of tackles, but he was the number 24 pick in the NFL draft. That's evidence of how dominant he was.
I would have loved to coach him. I watched some highlights of him. There was the first-round pick for the Giants, who I follow, New York guy, but he's playing really well and looks like a really good athlete too, and looks like he's very motivated to be really, really good player. So,
Yeah,
my hats are off to Dante. He's
yeah.
really a credit to Maryland.
I was surprised he was so low in some of the stats, actually, and that's why.
I think he did. I think he was hurt and didn't play for a whole year, I think.
Yeah, and they also had the COVID year, so he had pieces of different years and things like that. So that probably contributed to it as well. You're
Yeah.
right, Coach. All right, let's go to our honorable mention defensive backs. We've got Jacorian Bennett, also another recent defensive back, 2020 to 2022 under Coach Locks.
Don't know a whole lot about him, but Coach Locks recruited him. I'm sure he's a pretty good player.
He's a great player. He is first all-time in passes defended in Maryland history, and he was the number 104 pick in the NFL draft. Antoine Brooks, 2016 to 2019, another one who doesn't rank that high, although he's second in tackles all-time amongst defensive backs. This guy was, for me, the life of the party on the defensive side in the late teens. He was a monster back there, Coach.
I'm sure he was.
Yeah. Okay. Turkey Brown. We've been talking about Turkey Brown, 1984 to 1985. Donald Turkey Brown. What about him, Coach?
I could tell you about 10 stories about this guy. I mean,
All right. Give us some good ones.
Well, Turkey Brown transferred from Oklahoma. He was from the Annapolis area in Maryland.
Okay.
Went to Oklahoma and decided to transfer to Maryland, and he had a disagreement. Wasn't going to class. Coach Ross pulled him in, and it's a long story, but Coach kind of threw him off the team because he didn't feel like he was taking his academics seriously. Okay. So I take Gloria to Annapolis for our anniversary, and we went to Reardon's, which was a restaurant owned by Reardon, who played basketball for the Bullets. And who is the doorman but Turkey Brown? Well, he takes us in, he brings us upstairs, just tells me he's going to be back. He's going to junior college. He's going to get his grades, and he's going to walk on in September. And Gloria says, "Boy, what a nice young man he is." Coach just threw him off the team. I don't know about that. Well, he shows up, and Bobby lets him come on to walk on. So we're having 2-a-days, and we're having our last scrimmage, which is the best against the rest. And Turkey's on with the rest. Well, Turkey runs for like 3 or 4 touchdowns against our best defense. He was back on scholarship that night. But we had so many running backs back then, that we moved him to defensive back. And he played really well for us. And I can remember the one play he made there was the game against Miami where we came back, and they had a I think his name was J.B. Brown. They had a wide receiver that was a really good wide receiver. And Turkey was playing too deep, and they threw a fade, and he came over and hit him in the hole. And he told me later, I'm the baddest Brown on the field today. But he's a good player, and I got to see him some when he played with Miami for a couple of years, and I went to I was coaching at Georgia Tech then, and I went to a Falcons camp, and Miami was there, and he was playing for Miami. Came up, and I spent some time with him, but he really played well for Maryland when I was there.
Good story of persistence there. Stick to it when things go wrong, and they could turn out right. He ended up being drafted 129th overall, so worked out for him. Nolan Carroll, who played for you, coach, in the late 2000s, 2006 to 2009.
Yeah, this kid was a really good player from Florida, and had a really good family, and I wanted to make him a wide receiver, and we were struggling for wide receivers then, and he was like second team, on our depth chart as a defensive back. And I told him, I said, look, you can move the wide receiver, you're probably going to be first team. He said, no, coach, I want to be a defensive back. Well, not only did he end up starting a defensive back, he ended up playing the pros for about 8 years. And
Wow.
really, he could really run and he could hit, and he was true to what he wanted to do. You got to listen to him when they want to do that.
And we'll slot right in there alphabetically, who was accidentally listed as a linebacker, but should have been here in the defensive backs, is Jerome Cox, coach.
Yeah, Carone was one of those guys that played on my early teams, 2001 to 2003. He was our boundary corner, and he really was an excellent boundary corner, not only because he could cover, but because he was a very physical guy, and we like to roll that corner up a lot and get him part of the run game. So, Jerome is coaching at Virginia right now, and is really done a great job. He's also a very good student at Maryland. I think he averaged over a 3.0 while he was there. And, again, we wouldn't have won 31 games in 3 years. We didn't have players like Jerome.
Sean Davis in the early teens. He is the all-time leader in tackles for defensive backs in Maryland
Wow.
history. Yeah, at 319 as a in the secondary, so that's pretty cool. Also, 14 passes defended ranks pretty high. It looks like there are 3 players higher than that, so he's fourth in passes defended as well. He was 58th in the NFL draft, a second rounder, just a dominant player in the early teens under Edsel.
Yeah, I think I remember him. I also know this next guy, William Likely. I know he played. I guess I played against him when I was at Rutgers also. But
Yes. William Likely played 2013 to 2016. He's very interesting. He ranks pretty high in tackles, actually.
I
He
don't know if
is,
that's a good thing or a bad thing when the secondary is ranking high in
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that shouldn't be. But he also has a ton of passes defended, ranks amongst the leaders all time in history there. He made 2 first team all conference, but he made them for special teams, which we're going to get to in our next episode. As a defensive back, he's got some really good stats. He didn't have the same kind of accolades. He wasn't drafted in the NFL. That's why we have as an honorable mention here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Chad Scott, 95 to 96. Chad Scott is tied for 7th all time in interceptions. He was the 24th pick, a first rounder in the NFL draft.
I think he went to Pittsburgh, didn't he?
I don't remember.
That was in the NFL at that time. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tarheeb Steele,
Oh
who,
no.
yeah, he just finished up with the Terps coach. Tarheeb Steele, 166 tackles, which is really good. 21 passes defended, which is third all time in Maryland history. It did have 6 interceptions, which is tied for about 11th there. He was drafted 137th in the NFL. And then Josh Wilson, who played 2003 to 2006 coach, he was, let's see here, Josh Wilson, 128 tackles. So mid range for a defensive back there, but 55th, a second round pick in the NFL draft.
Yeah, he was a really good player. Interesting thing about Josh, his dad played for Coach Claiborne, Tim Wilson, and his dad passed away, and his mom, was kind of interesting because Josh went to DeMatha, and I got to know his mom, and she would come to practice quite a bit, and it turned out that she ended up going back to graduate school. So both Josh and her were really at Maryland at the same time. It's not often that you see your player and his mother at Maryland at one time, but she would come by all the time. And Josh ended up playing with the Redskins and played in the NFL for quite a few teams. And I think he still might be coaching. I don't know. I think he might be. I heard he might be coaching the DBs at DeMatha.
And that is going to do it for the linebackers and the defensive backs. Great linebackers, great defensive backs. Some guys I didn't really know of in history who were just great Terps. And so hopefully some people are going to watch this series and realize some of the players they didn't really ever think about in history. Some of those guys here and some of the more recent guys. Coach, tell everybody for the fourth time how to find Football by Friedgen.
It's on YouTube and Instagram, and it's just me talking about some of the big games we played when I was there.
Well, if people like these stories, they're going to like that even more. So we're going to put the link to that in the description. We're going to put a link to all the episodes in the description as well. Thank you guys very much. We've got one more to go. That's going to be special teams and coaches. This is IMS Radio.